Hello everyone. We are up to looking at topic 8 part 3. Now we're going to look at some blood vessels. So now we've finished looking at the heart itself, and remember that the heart is the organ responsible for moving the blood around the body. It is the blood vessels that actually delivers the blood to all the tissues. So let's have a look at our learning objectives and make sure you have answers to all of these to help you prepare for your assessment tasks. So let's start with what is an artery and what is a vein. If we have a look here on this slide, the heart is doing the propelling of the blood, whereas the vascular system or the arteries and the veins are the ones that are delivering the blood to the tissues. Okay, so when we look at arteries, arteries carry blood away from the heart and to the body, tissues, and veins do the opposite. Veins drain the blood from the tissues and return the blood back to the heart. So here we go, the artery and the vein. From the heart to the heart. Okay, so normally in your textbook, veins will be coloured in red and veins will be coloured in blue and arteries will be coloured in red. So red just indicates blood that has lots of oxygen in it, and blue kind of indicates deoxygenated blood or blood that doesn't have oxygen in it. So arteries are red, veins are blue. So we know that arteries deliver blood to the tissues, so take blood away from the heart and to the tissues, and veins drain the blood from the tissues and bring it back to the heart. But there is one exception, and that is in the pulmonary trunk. So if you look at this, arteries are red, veins are blue, but for the lungs, there's an exception of 2. Okay, so just be mindful of that, and later on you will see exactly which veins and arteries we're talking about when we're talking about these 2 exceptions when we look at the circuits. But just for now, I just want you to understand that arteries are depicted red, carry blood away from the heart to the tissues, and that blood is oxygenated. Veins drain the blood away from the tissues back to the heart, and that blood is deoxygenated. Okay, now we're looking at capillaries. So here we have our arteries, here we have our veins, but capillaries is where all the action happens with regards to the exchange of molecules and fluids and other things from the blood to our cells. So remember that a tissue is a population of cells, and capillaries are the little blood vessels that deliver blood to the cells in that tissue. Okay, so you need to understand that the capillary bed is where all of this kind of interaction happens. Before we get into looking at all of the different blood vessels that we're going to learn about, we need to understand that blood vessels, all blood vessels, are made up of 3 parts, and these are called tunics. The tunics, there are 3 tunics, and I've made a picture here for you so you can understand. The tunica intima, which is this orange one here. So this is the inside of the blood vessel. This is the outside. The tunica media, which is the middle layer here in blue. And the tunica externa, which is the outermost layer. Yeah. So we're going to have a look and see how that differs with all of the different blood vessels. But just to get a general idea of what's in each layer, let's just have a look. The tunica intima, which is the innermost layer, is made up of endothelial tissue. Remember we saw that before when we were looking at tissues? The tunica media is made up of smooth muscle most of the time, and sometimes it has elastic fibres in it. So they're the major parts. And the tunica externa, that's made up of connective tissue. So you've got like a mixture of 3 different tissue types making up each blood vessel. Okay. So don't forget that all blood vessels, except for one, have 3 layers. And now what we're going to do is we're going to look at each blood vessel in turn. We're going to look at arteries first, then we're going to look at capillaries, and then we're going to look at veins. No, actually, we're going to look at arteries, then veins, and capillaries. I think that's the order that we're going in. All right, let's have a look at arteries, hey? Okay, here is an image from your textbook showing all of the different kinds of arteries. Now, there are 3 different kinds of arteries that we need to know about. The first one is the large elastic arteries. Now, these guys, this is a picture of a large elastic artery. These arteries have lots of elastin in it. Okay? It's present everywhere. And they don't have a lot of smooth muscle. So what it is, these large elastic arteries work a lot like large, simple elastic tubes. And the reason why we need lots of elastin in there is because when you push blood into these arteries, you want them to expand, but you also want them to recoil. So they need to have a little bit of give. Because they are sitting so close to the heart, they're going to get like waves of blood. So we need them to be able to expand and recoil. Expand and recoil without breaking. That's the whole point. So these large elastic arteries, they're close to the heart, and then they eventually turn into these medium-sized arteries. These medium-sized ones, they usually deliver blood to organs, and they are a little bit different. So these medium-sized arteries, they have a smooth muscle. So they have more muscle and less elastin than the large ones. So the good thing about these medium-sized arteries is that the smooth muscle can contract and it can make that artery shrink. So you use the band of smooth muscle to make the artery vasoconstrict and then vasodilate, okay? So medium-sized muscular arteries can vasoconstrict, which means that the smooth muscle rings, like rubber bands around a pipe, when they contract, they make that medium-sized artery narrower. And that's how we can control how much blood goes to all the different organs. And the last kind of artery is called the arteriole. Here we go, little baby artery. These guys also have the three tunics. So all arteries have all the three tunics, but arterioles also have smooth muscle. Yep. So they are responsible, and I'll show you in a minute a picture on how they also control blood flow. So this large artery here is more for the delivery of the blood, and this one is more for controlling for where the blood is going. So here's a picture showing how arterioles can control how much blood goes through the capillary bed. When the arteriole is dilated, and then all the blood can flow through nicely. When the arteriole is constricted, then that capillary bed gets less blood. Okay, let me just get my drawing pad up and then I'll come back. Okay, so I just need to get my drawings organised. So normally I would just draw this on my screen. So when you are stressed out, your hypothalamus detects this, and your hypothalamus activates your sympathetic nervous system. Now, this means that a set of neurons are going to be firing action potentials. So your hypothalamus detects that you're stressed, and it tells certain neurons to fire. Now those neurons, sympathetic nervous system neurons, and they talk to your adrenal gland. And those neurons tell your adrenal gland to release adrenaline into the bloodstream. So adrenaline then floats around in your blood and eventually gets to where it has its effect. Now we saw that adrenaline receptors are found in the heart, and adrenaline receptors are also found in the lungs, but there's also adrenaline receptors on your blood vessels. Now what happens, remember how our blood vessels, this is the blood vessels, consider this like a tube with rings of smooth muscle around the tube. What adrenaline does is that it binds to that smooth muscle and makes it contract. So then your blood vessel constricts, okay? Now, adrenaline has this effect. So adrenaline is going to affect the diameter of your blood vessels. It makes them constrict in the skin and abdominal areas, but it makes them dilate in your skeletal muscles. So you can add that to the picture here. You can add this, like this has got to do in the skin, in the abdominal areas, but it's going to make them dilate in the skeletal muscles. So just this is how adrenaline affects your blood vessels. Okay, so we just finished talking about blood vessels in general, and we talked about arteries, the 3 different kinds of arteries. and the effect of adrenaline on your blood vessels, I might stop the recording here and make a new recording for the rest of it.